Hi, everybody. My name is Noel Wurst, and I recently gave one of the Parenting Perks talks here at San Jose Episcopal Day School on AI and where it can play a role in our child's lives and in our children's lives and in our lives as well. I really wanted to thank Dr. Castleman and the school as a whole for welcoming me in to talk to both the parents for one session, and I also got to speak to the teachers as well. Both of them were great sessions, and a couple of the parents reached out asking if I could make a recording of the talk because they were unable to attend in person. More than happy to do so. My whole mantra and kind of mission around AI these days is really increasing the understanding and awareness that people have about the reality of these tools, the myth of these tools, the real concerns. And you'll see in a minute that we'll talk about all of those things during this talk. So real quick, just again, my kind of mission and mantra in this, I went to a software testing conference over the summer of 2023, and this was the first slide at the keynote on that first day. And it really just moved me. And it's kind of become my personal mission, as well as a number of other people as well, thankfully, that there is going to be this disparity between those who are aware of the tools that are out there, that understand how to use them, that have access to them either through their own means or their employers, and who accept how transformative they really are. They are unlike anything we have ever seen in education, technology, healthcare, the legal world, law enforcement. There is no industry that is, I don't want to say immune from AI, but that will not need it or will not be using it. And so for me personally, I want to do what I can to increase those three things for as many groups as possible. And so it was really great to get to feel like that had been done with both the parents who were able to come in person and the teachers at San Jose, because you won't really get anything out of the tools that are out there or the tools that are coming without these three things. If I just made this session about how to use them, just to increase your understanding of how to use these tools, but spent no time on trying to build up your acceptance of the reality of how powerful these tools are, none of that educational material really matters. If I grant you access to these tools, or your employer says, you've got full access to ChatGPT or whatever AI tool it is, but they spend no time showing you how to use them, or helping increase that acceptance, again, it doesn't matter that they gave you access. So all three of these things are super important. And I want to make sure that no group is left out from them. A little bit about me. Again, my name is Noel. I work for SmartBear, a software development and testing company up in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm their director of storytelling. I'll talk about that title in a minute. I've had two sons come through San Jose Episcopal. They are now, one's a junior and one's in 8th grade at Episcopal. And then my youngest is in 2nd grade currently at San Jose. We're also longtime members and participants and givers to the San Jose Episcopal Church. We help run the live stream some Sundays so that it can be watched. Again, it's all about access, about increasing the access that people have to our Sunday services, and through a number of other activities and youth group activities at San Jose. We love the school and the church so much. I've been in the tech industry for about 10 or 11 years in a variety of roles that involve going out and speaking to customers or prospects or investors or whatever the audience may be. And my current title is a director of storytelling, which I just think is the coolest title ever. And it's not just me telling stories. We have lots of people at our company who are out there talking to different audiences. And just like today, it's important to know who the audience is, what will resonate with them, what won't, what are you trying to empower them or enable them to do? And can you say that you did enough to do that? That's a large part of my job. And so I hope that today you feel empowered and enabled to maybe go looking into some of these tools a little more once you've seen the kinds of ways they're being used, in ways that schools are fully approved of these tools being used as well. So we'll talk about that too. And I'm just really, really into AI. Not as a salesperson. This isn't a sales pitch for AI. I'm not giving you some coupon code at the end. I don't get anything out of you increasing your usage of AI. This is purely an informational awareness building session that I was really happy that Dr. Castleman and the school allowed me to come in and give. So real quick, what we'll be talking about today, we're going to spend just a few minutes on an intro as to what is AI, what do we mean when we say that, what is generative AI, how is that different, why is that such a big deal, and why is it going to be a big deal for, I'll just go ahead and say, the rest of our lives. It definitely is. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to put the real concerns down at the end about, oh yeah, and then also be aware of these things over here. There's some seriously concerning stuff. There's also a lot of myths out there that are maybe not as concerning. So I want to talk about those as well. We'll take a quick look at ChatGPT, understand kind of what it is, how it works, and then we'll get into like some really cool ways that we're using AI. When I say we, I mean me and my kids, that I'm helping them with in their work. It's just a sliver of ideas. There are so many different ways these tools are being used, and so many different ways that people discover every day some new thing they came up with, where they then go online and share, oh my gosh, look what I just thought of to do and how well it did it. That's the way we're all finding out more about how powerful these tools can be for us. We definitely want to talk about safety, privacy, and responsible use. We'll hit on that. We'll talk about maybe what's next for AI. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do the Q&A because this is a recording, but you'll see my contact info on the last slide. When I say you are more than welcome to reach out to me anytime to talk AI, ask questions, I mean it. I love this stuff so much, but it's just really interesting to me and I'm really passionate about it. So I'm not an AI consultant. I don't have any rates. You are welcome to reach out to me for free to ask questions or talk about AI at any time. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So the introduction to AI and generative AI, which by the way, these images, including this one here of what looks like me on the moon, these were all generated by AI. None of these are kind of, well, they are original. They're original from AI tools, but ChatGPT created these images. So that's another kind of helpful use case that we'll kind of talk about. So vocabulary, I'm a huge word nerd. I'm an English major in college, writer, all that kind of stuff. I could make this whole session about vocabulary and love it, but I'll spare you. I just want to kind of go over some of the big high value words that are important to know and really easy to know. None of these are overly technical. You need no technical knowledge to understand any of this, just like you need no technical knowledge to understand how to use some of the tools that we're going to talk about today. So AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning. You may have seen these terms be used interchangeably before. Marketers like myself, who maybe those who don't understand AI so well, will use them interchangeably. They'll say AI in the first paragraph. They'll say machine learning in the third paragraph. They'll put AI/ML when they just don't know which one it is. So they want to put both just to kind of cover their bases. But here's the difference. AI is just any software application, any sort of technology that enables computers to simulate human intelligence. And simulate is the important word there. It's not to recreate human intelligence. It's not to replace human intelligence. It's a simulation. It is to look like human intelligence when you see it. And I'll show you some examples of AI that we've all been using for years. Machine learning, a little bit deeper, a little bit more technical, a lot more technical, which we don't even need to get into, but it is basically that a discipline of AI where these computers, these technologies, this code, these apps are able to do that at a much larger scale. I would say maybe more accurately and with less and less human intervention required. So with AI, it is solely dependent on you putting in something and then it just returns that exact same thing. With machine learning, you put in something and it also might provide some more information to you or some more context that is pretty impressive. So we'll take a look at what that is in a little bit. Examples of AI. It's funny sometimes when I'm out talking to people about AI and they say, oh, AI, I'm not touching that. I'm not getting anywhere near AI. And it's like, well, you are. You're doing it every day. It's just in the background. And that's how we'll talk about the difference between AI and generative AI. AI is just running in the background and it powers almost all the apps that you use. And it's about to power them much more. I would say 1,000 times more, 10,000 times more. I don't really know. But every major company, Google, Amazon, Facebook, all of these companies are just pouring money and pouring AI into every facet of these applications because of what it can do. So like Apple's Face ID, that's an example of AI. It's simulating the human intelligence of being able to recognize your face and say, yes, you are allowed into this phone, versus a face it doesn't recognize and saying, no, I'm not going to let you in this phone. Netflix's recommendation engine is really cool if you're a nerd like me, and all of the stuff that the recommendations are based on that it sends to you. It's not just you watched this movie with Adam Sandler, so now watch this movie with Adam Sandler. It's based on your whole history over time and millions of data points of your age and the part of the country you're in and how many other accounts are on your family plan and what they're watching and what percentage of people who fit all those same criteria who watched this movie watch next, and how long did they watch it for, and which movies did they bail on really quickly, and why. It's fascinating. It's all AI running in the background. Last one, Google like text autofill. You may have noticed that back in the day, if you were typing a word, maybe it would figure out that word with only one or two letters left, and it would offer to type in those letters for you. Where now sometimes you're typing in Gmail, for instance, and it wants to finish the entire sentence for you. And sometimes it's right. That's AI. That is a computer learning from 10 billion other emails out there that have that sentence in it, of the probability of you're probably typing that same sentence too, so it recommends it to you. That's artificial intelligence. That's simulating human intelligence. Let's talk about generative AI now and talk about why that's so different and why that's, I don't know if I want to say more impressive. It's just really, really interesting. So OpenAI is the company that made ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the generative AI tool that gets the most attention out there. You've probably heard it mentioned the most. Like I mentioned before, there are tools like Gemini and Claude that are going to also keep getting headlines as well, and other tools that'll come along after it. But ChatGPT is by far used by hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of millions more people than these other tools. So OpenAI, people asked both in the teacher session and the parent session, where is this company based out of? They are based here in the US, up in Silicon Valley. A guy named Sam Altman is the one who started that company. Again, nerd like me, you can find Sam Altman's recordings of when he was called to Congress to testify. He's just a fascinating, fascinating guy. So in 2019, Microsoft gave OpenAI $1 billion. And I remember this. I remember reading the headlines and just going, oh, cool. I guess Microsoft is doing something with AI. Like, we'd never heard of OpenAI. We didn't know what they did or would do. The name ChatGPT had not come out yet, anything like that. And so it made headlines, but Microsoft has lots of billions of dollars. It's certainly a large amount of money, but it really wasn't anything all that like we immediately just didn't take our eyes off of Microsoft or anything like that. It was just, a tech headline. And then 2 years later, they gave them $2 billion more. And people started to think, well, they must be building something pretty cool over there, I guess. I don't know. I still haven't seen anything. I haven't heard any more about it, but Microsoft has now put $3 billion into this company. They must be building something pretty cool. They were building something really cool. Oops, I skipped ahead here. Didn't mean to do that. In 2022, on November 30th, ChatGPT was released by OpenAI. I remember this date like it was yesterday. It was a really big deal, and people started to look at it and started to go, well, this is wild. I've never seen anything like this before. This is probably a pretty big deal. It certainly was. ChatGPT in 5 days hit 1 million users. And you can see here how long it took these other companies to hit 1 million users. That's wild. Nothing like that had ever happened before. And there's some explanations for why some of these companies took longer. I mean, if you know Facebook's story, if you've seen the movie The Social Network, Facebook was started in like a Harvard dorm room. It didn't have the same public launch that a lot of tools out there do today, but still 5 days is 5 days. I mean, no one has come anywhere close to that. Well, if you think about it, all of these companies have way more than 1 million users. So if ChatGPT had, capped out at 1 million users, it wouldn't be a story. I wouldn't be giving this talk today. But that's not what happened. That's OpenAI's logo there over on the right. ChatGPT hit 100 million users in 2 months. That's impossible to ignore, disregard, say is all hype. I mean, they barely have any advertising whatsoever. This is like word of mouth, OMG driven usage to 100 million users. That's a big, big deal. You see TikTok there at 9 months. You think about how much we hear about TikTok in the news versus ChatGPT, and it took TikTok 9 months, 2 months to 100 million users. I don't know that we'll ever see anything like that ever again. And because of that, again, pay attention to those dates. ChatGPT came out November 30th of 2022. And in January, less than 2 months later, Microsoft gave $10 billion more to OpenAI. Big, big bucks. And today, or as of in January, I mean, we're in April now, ChatGPT had 180 million users. So another 80 million on top of what I just showed you. Again, that was 3 months ago. I don't know the current number. They might be at 200 million now. I don't know. But this is a really big deal. This is not just tech hobbyists or tech enthusiasts or nerds like me playing around with some tool called ChatGPT. This is now ChatGPT is being used in every industry in the entire world. There is no, well, it won't be used in farming. It's like, it already is. And it's like, well, yeah, but they won't be able to use this in like the legal world, that kind of thing. One of the biggest use cases is across legal. It's like, well, but it won't be allowed in school. It's like, there is no, it won't touch my industry. There is no, I won't see this in my job. You will, like, you just will. And that is a big hump to kind of get over. It doesn't mean that you then have to become an enthusiast and be out here talking about it, fanatically like I am. But getting over that, it can't do this, or I won't see it here, is an important step to take. Let's talk about why. Generative AI, that's what ChatGPT is. It's not AI running in the background, it's AI that you control. It is AI on the front end that we say. It is AI that you direct it what to do and what to give you back. And again, every day, a million new people, it feels like, think of something new to do with it that no one else had tried or thought of, and they share it online, and the rest of us are like, holy cow. Generative AI is AI that can be used to create. It's kind of gotten to where whatever you want. There was a time where it could only do this, and then it could only do this, and then it could only do this, and so on and so on. And every release, every month, every quarter, think about how long ChatGPT has been around. It's been around for less than 2 years. From where it was at to what it is today is pretty staggering. So let's talk about why this is so cool. This code over here on the left, and again, disclaimer, I've never written a line of computer code in my life. I don't know how to code. I am not a developer. I'm not an engineer. And you don't need to be one either to use tools like AI. That's why it's a big deal. But this code over here on the left is written in a coding language called Python. And if you were to type out this code, if you knew how to do that, and to type out this exact code and not miss a single colon or parentheses or a single comma out of place, you could click run or hit run, whatever it is, and this code would draw this picture of this dog. I guess it's a dog. I mean, it looks kind of like a dog. If someone asked me what kind of animal is this, I might guess a bear first. It's got the colors of a Doberman, but like some ears would have been helpful. But this is the code that you would have needed to type out or found online and made sure was correct and entered it in and hit run to get this picture of a dog. ChatGPT allows you to type this instead. This is what I typed into ChatGPT, and I hit enter, and in 10 seconds, I had this. That's a world of difference. And yes, it's only a picture of a dog, but we'll talk about how it can get a lot better or a lot more kind of detailed and impressive from here. But what this is called is prompting. When you ask an AI tool like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, whatever the case may be, to create something for you, you are prompting it to do so. So when you hear that word, that's what that means. It just means giving a tool some instructions, by giving a tool some direction as to what it is you want it to do. And this is where my story into AI kind of comes from. So Ethan Mollick, by the way, is my favorite voice on AI. He has a blog called One Useful Thing. I could not recommend reading it and subscribing to it more. He writes about AI like in the business world, in just the professional world, in just our lives, how to think about it, and not from this is intended for developers and engineers. It's intended for, I would say, the rest of us who maybe aren't as technical. That's me included. And this is what happened with me, where he says here that he'd been hearing, this is from a while ago, he'd been hearing about how these tools writing is pretty bad. And that's because everyone's attempts at using it are bad. So when ChatGPT first came out, I heard about it, I read about it, I saw some examples of what it could do, but then I started hearing people talk about how great of a writer it was. Well, I'm a writer, so that was a little distressing for me because part of my job is writing. And I started thinking like, wait, this tool, this wonder tool that's got $13 billion behind it, can write really well. That's scary. And so I opened up ChatGPT, and I forget what my original prompt was, but it was something like, I don't know, write me a blog about baseball or something. And what it wrote back was bad. I mean, like, it was a bad blog. You couldn't tell who the audience was. I didn't understand what it was trying to actually tell me. It was just bad. And I was a little relieved. And I was like, woof, that's great. And then someone was like, well, look how bad your prompt is. You just said write it a blog. Like, if you can't tell who the audience is, tell it who the audience needs to be. Tell it what tone to use. Tell it who's the persona of the person writing it. Do you want it to write it like a computer? Do you want it to write it like a college professor? Do you want it to write it like a 10-year-old kid? Do you want it to write it like a gardener? Like whatever persona you tell it to be, whatever audience you tell it to create it something for, the tone, the amount of figurative language, the number of facts. Do you want to include sources? You give it all that direction, it gives you all that in return. And once I saw it do that and saw the quality of what it could create, that was a real eye-opening OMG moment for me. And I had to quickly learn how to not be terrified that the tool could do this or that a tool could do this, and how to incorporate it into my work so that I could use it as a tool and use it for my benefit, not think of it as just some instant replacement for me. So another example of prompting. Again, let's think about what prompting is and what it can deliver. This is a prompt. This is a prompt that I typed in for this talk into ChatGPT. I wanted to create for me a birthday party invitation. And so I typed this in and I hit enter, and in 5 seconds or whatever, I had this. So I'll let you take a look at this. This isn't anything that I'm incapable of creating on my own. And that's one of the things that's important to learn about these tools as well, is sometimes you are asking them to create something that you can't do or don't know how to do, or that kind of case. Sometimes it's just asking it to create something for you that you can do, but you can't do it in 5 seconds. So if you look at this party invitation here, again, it's nothing remarkable. But if I think about how long it would have taken me to write this, I could say at the far end of that estimate, I could say an hour. It might have been a little bit less than that, but as someone who's pretty particular with their words, who's pretty picky about what I put my name onto, I could see myself hemming and hawing over every little word and phrase and spacing, and do I make this bold, and should this be a bulleted list, things like that. The fact that it's in this shape in 5 seconds is wild, because what's my job as a parent if I have a child who has a birthday party coming up? It's to make that party memorable for my child, to make sure my child has a great time at the party, to make sure all the kids have a great time at the party. The invitation is not what makes me as a parent. Now, some people go pretty wild with their invitations, and that's totally, totally fine. But for me, like, I have other parts of the party that I need to focus on. And so to get the invitation created this quickly is pretty wild. I also probably wouldn't, oh, not probably, I also wouldn't have thought to put these emojis in it. And they're pretty cool. I didn't even know there was a video game controller emoji. And so the fact that it added a little bit extra, I didn't say this is where it's machine learning and not just AI. I didn't say also include some fun emojis in the title and then make sure one is the computer controller or the video game controller and a rocket and that kind of stuff. It just did that on its own because it can see like the world out there. It can see, it's basically been trained on everything on the internet and see that these things make for party invitations that people like. And so it went ahead and put some in there. Now, there may be a couple of changes here and there that I decide to go with. Maybe my kid doesn't think pixel pioneers is that cool of a phrase because he or she doesn't know what the word pixel even means. And so maybe we delete that. One thing you should kind of also have in your mind as you start to think about how to use these tools more often is it's typically not a great idea to just grab whatever it wrote and just run off to the printer and go with it. There may be some tweaks that you see in there that you can make that make it more you, that make it sound like it wasn't written by a computer, that make it sound like something that you wrote. So when your audience reads or hears or receives that piece of content from you in whatever format they do, they can hear you in it. That's always a really good idea. And we'll talk about some other reasons that it's good to kind of change things up and really fact check things that ChatGPT and these tools create for you in a bit. But this is pretty cool as far as how quickly it can create this. Here's another example. ChatGPT, within the last maybe 3 or 4 months, I think that's about when it was, started allowing you to create your own customized GPTs. So that would be your own version of ChatGPT that basically just does one thing really well. So instead of just being able to ask it for text or just an image or video, whatever the case may be, in this example, someone created a custom GPT that can create fake Lego boxes. And it's like, why would you want to create a fake Lego box? They're cool. This prompt here at the top is one that my youngest son typed in or spoke into ChatGPT to see what it would create. It's pretty spot on. We play with this together all the time now. And it doesn't matter how wild you get with your fake Lego boxes. I mean, we've done a T-Rex surfing in the ocean while eating watermelon, and there's a spaceship flying by that is exploding into like a rainbow of fireworks, and there is a monster truck on the beach, and it's jumping over a river full of gummy worms. It makes it all. There is no limit to what you can ask these tools to do and ask them to create for you. And so we play with this sometimes if we're waiting for a show to start or waiting for dinner to finish cooking or we're sitting in traffic. It is inside of ChatGPT and free to use. And it just opens up a world of creativity when you start to think about what kind of things can I see if this thing can do? What kind of things can we, like what game can we play with things like this? I'll show you one more example of prompting. This is from ChatGPT's newest feature that's coming out later this year. OpenAI hasn't said when, but they have said that in 2024, Sora, S-O-R-A, which is their new video creation capability, will be made available to everyone. And you can search for OpenAI and Sora. I forget the URL, but if you just go to Google and search for OpenAI, Sora, S-O-R-A, it's mind-blowing. There's an example of a couple of the videos that they have created to show what you'll be able to do later this year. And with this prompt, which again, this isn't Shakespearean writing. This isn't something of, oh, I could never write a prompt like this. It's just a scene. Like it's just a scene for you to think about in your head of, yeah, I can picture that. There's a woman walking down the street. It's wet, so there's some puddles. It's Tokyo, so I'm imagining lots of neon and there's lots of other people around. That's really kind of all it is. When you type this into ChatGPT and you hit enter, shortly after you get this. This is all created fictitiously from scratch. None of this is not stock footage that it found somewhere. Like when you search on Google for something like that, it might find a video that has that scene in it at its best. This is created just on the spot. This is going to completely change the film industry or any sort of video that is used in commercials, TV shows, movies, video games. It is going to completely disrupt that world. In what ways? We don't know yet because it hasn't come out yet, but people cannot wait to get their hands on it. And this is just another feature. OpenAI isn't done when this comes out. This wasn't their end goal to finally get to video. So every time they release something new that everyone thought, well, at least it can't do this, it can. And so when you see this and you think about the ways of this is going to change everything, I'm going to be able to just make videos on the spot of just like I did with that Lego box. The wildest things I can think of, I can just turn into like real, like live action video. That's crazy. So with that, let's talk about some of the myths of how crazy this stuff is. Let's talk about the real concerns of how crazy a lot of this is. Common myths. AI is going to take over the world. When I came home from giving my teacher talk, which is the one I gave before the parent, I gave that one first before the parents talk. My youngest asked how it went, and I said it went really great. It was so much fun. The teachers had such great questions, and he said, "I heard AI is going to take over the world." That is a common myth out there. It's not going to take over the world. You're going to hear me say things like, "We don't know what's next," and that's also true. But if we think about what these tools are, how they work, that it's humans that control them entirely, these tools are not out there thinking of ways to take over the world. They're not sentient, like we like to say. They don't have aspirations of running their own planet or their own government or anything like that. Now, if you want to say take over the world, kind of like a hyperbole of they're going to be involved in every aspect of our lives across the world, I think that's probably going to happen. But they're not going to take over the world and they're not going to end the world. That's not a capability that they have. Thinks like a human, likes a human, or thinks like a human, or if are they smart? Are they learning? Words like that, as for a word nerd like me, I love to get kind of tangled up in those and think about it. But they don't think like a human because they're just not human. They don't think at all. They have this vast amount of information that is growing every single day that they are pulling from, and then they are delivering that information to you in a way that is supposed to look human-like. It's supposed to sound like you're getting it back from a human. It's not supposed to sound like you're getting it back from a computer. That doesn't mean they think like a human. They're not learning on their own. They're not getting smarter. They're just getting access to more information. They're being filled with more features of things they can do, but it's not like learning on its own after hours when everybody else like goes home and goes to bed at OpenAI. The tools don't all of a sudden go, finally some free time where I can look over here and learn this stuff that I really want to learn about. That's not what they do. We've seen that they're not difficult to use. That's been proven before. The whole reason for all of these tools is the exact opposite of that, is that all of the tools that you would have used to create copy, images, video games, video, all of those things have been difficult to use, or they were not difficult for someone who could spend the time to learn how to use them, maybe even having to go to school or take courses to learn how to use them. The reason these tools exist today, these generative AI tools, is to make prompting and asking them to do stuff as simple as you would if you asked the person sitting next to you. AI is going to take everyone's jobs. You'll see here on the reality that it's not going to take everyone's jobs, but Sam Altman, the creator of ChatGPT, has himself said to Congress, it's absolutely going to take some people's jobs. We'll talk about that in a little bit as to the reality around that. And then the last one, like I mentioned before, AI won't do what I do and it won't impact my industry. That just needs to be a thing you remember believing one day. It does not need to be something current that you are still believing today. It really can't, because it's not true, because it's not that it's going to come to your industry. It's already there. You may just not be aware of the ways that it's in your industry, but you can certainly look those up and learn those. They're all there. There's not one industry you can type in where it would say, well, it's not a part of this one. So the real concerns, it's going to eliminate some jobs. It's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. The other reality is that it's also going to improve a lot of jobs. The best use cases for it that I use personally and that my colleagues use at SmartBear is we are using these tools now every day. It's the same thing as using the internet. It kind of just is the new internet. It hasn't gotten rid of any of our jobs. It's replaced a lot of the manual, time-consuming, somewhat error-prone aspects of our jobs. But I'll give you an example. One of the jobs that has greatly affected would be like freelance copywriters. If a freelance copywriter's sole offering that they sell to other businesses is purely creating content, like you ask me for a blog and I write you a blog, you ask me for a white paper and I write you a white paper, that is really no longer needed to be performed by a human. Now, I don't just mean that ChatGPT creates the blog or the white paper and you just take it for its word and you publish it online. You still need someone who can review that content and make sure it is for the right audience and at the right tone and at the right brand, that it's true. I mean, if you're asking these things to create content around stuff that you don't know anything about, you have to be able to show it to someone or fact check that piece of content to make sure it's accurate. So I'm not saying it gets rid of the need for any human involvement, but for someone to write that first draft for you, it's hard to argue that you still need a person to create that. And I'll show you some examples of why. AI will be used by bad actors. That's true. And I wish it wasn't this much of a given to have to justify still using AI for this reason, but every technology we as humans have ever created has been used by bad actors. I mean, the printing press was used and has been used to accelerate the spread of misinformation, which, as you can see, is on here as well. Radio has been used to spread propaganda. TVs have been used to show all sorts of things to get people riled up or to scare people into things. The internet, telephone, mobile apps, social media, there's nothing we've created that bad people haven't used for their advantage. There's nothing we've created that good people haven't used for their advantage. It's all the great reasons that the TV, and cell phones, and internet, and those things exist. But to say that because AI will be used by bad people is a reason that you won't use AI is kind of the same thing as saying that the internet will be used by bad people, so you won't use the internet. It's hard to justify that being a thing that you can really say is a good idea. Misconceptions will lead to uneven access. That's true too. That's that thing that I'm out here trying to at least reduce, is to eliminate some of the misconceptions, to highlight some of the realities, and highlight some of the cool things that are out there that you can use AI to do. And again, especially around our children. And we'll talk about that here very, very soon. So ChatGPT, what is it? It is called a large language model. What ChatGPT essentially is it is this tool, this generative AI tool that has access to, you can just call it everything on the internet. Every web page, every book, library, recording, every single thing that it can access, just like you can Google anything yourself, and then you can go hunting through all of Google's results and try to find that thing you need. Maybe it's a recipe, maybe it's a lesson plan, maybe it's directions, whatever it is. ChatGPT can do the same thing. It can pull from all of that stuff, and it can just get it to you way, 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 way faster, and a lot more kind of like precise, and that you just get that one thing. When you Google something and it says, it found 187 million results, and they're all there. I mean, they're all available. ChatGPT takes it a step further, where it's not just finding information from you, it's creating things off of that information, and even faster than Google can even like return the results to you sometimes. It does what's called natural language processing. That just means that you can speak to it in your natural language. You don't have to put your prompts into any sort of format or there's no code involved. You just use your natural language. It can process that with whatever speed you talk, whatever accent you have, whatever language you speak, and it can turn that into what it needs to then go off like a computer and pull that stuff and give it back to you. And it's designed to answer, explain, make sense of, pretend to be anything you prompt it to do. That's the wild thing, is that when you go to ChatGPT for the first time, it looks just like that image you see there. It's kind of like endless freedom, but at the same time, to see something that blank, it can be hard to go there sometimes and go, I don't know, what should I type in there? I have no idea. That's kind of like what the challenge is sometimes. So I'm going to show you some examples. There was a time not that long ago, less than a year, that ChatGPT is less than 2 years old anyway, where people started to get really enamored with like how, quote, smart it is. And that's kind of died off. If you look here, these are all things that ChatGPT has done. It's passed bar exams. It's passed medical licensing exams that you take to become a doctor. It's passed these like surgeon exams. It's passed all of these tests. And there's a bit of so what there. Again, it has information, or it has access to all of the information that is used to answer those questions on those tests. So why wouldn't it be able to pass those things? That's not what's so impressive about ChatGPT. I mean, like, I'm using it for very mundane, monotonous tasks in my job, and I'm so blown away that it can do those so quickly and help me in so many ways as just a professional, like in the business world. I'm far more impressed that it did that than, did you hear it pass the bar exam? It's like, well, are the answers to the bar exam or the information that you need to craft the answers on the internet? Then no, I'm not that impressed that it passed the bar exam. But there was a time when this really blew people away. So let's talk about kind of what can blow people away. And let's start with our kids. AI and education is a sensitive topic, and I'll show you why on the next couple of slides about the things that you can do with these tools that your schools or your kids' schools probably don't want you to do, or would get your kid in trouble for doing. Now, there are plenty of other ways you can use them, and I'll show you those too, that would not get your kid in trouble in whatsoever, and they would be a huge asset to both you and your sanity and your kids and their level of understanding of the subject matter they're going over. And one thing that we're seeing happen is a lot of schools are being asked for their statement on AI. Like, what is your position on AI? What do you allow? What do you not allow? What is your stance on AI? And so this is the statement that the Episcopal School of Jacksonville put out. And it's really good. It's really, really good. And I'll show you some of the reasons why, some of the quotes that I've pulled out of here, but I was very impressed by it. And at my job, we're being asked for the same thing. I mean, our salespeople came to us and said, basically every call now is starting with this prospect we're talking to saying, hey, by the way, I need your AI position, your AI policy, whatever it is you have. I can't even continue the conversation further if I don't have that. And so that's something a lot of companies are in the process of drafting right now. And I know that because we're helping some of them draft those statements. They've seen ours and they're like, how did you get this? What teams did you work with? How did you know what to put in there, what not to put in there? And a lot of schools are doing the same. And so that's a question that I would imagine San Jose and lots of other schools are going to start hearing a lot more often. They want to know what a school's policy is around what can I use with my kid? What can my kid use these tools to do, and what can't they use? How does that change at home versus in the classroom and things like that? The reason, the reason that I like Episcopal so much, and I'm sure other schools will do the same, they won't be the only ones that'll phrase theirs this way, but the reason that I like theirs so much is this focus on the human, and that these are tools to aid us as humans. They are not tools to replace us as humans. They are not tools to replace us as students or as learners. They are there to emphasize the value. They are going to help us be better humans. That is their best use case. Episcopal just leads with this throughout this document, and they've put out other documents since then that reiterate this, and I love seeing that. And this one's really interesting. Learning has become the process. This is what I'm not in the educational field. I don't know how schools are going to address this, but when you see the types of things that ChatGPT, for instance, can do, when it can complete an entire assignment for you without you having to do anything other than say, do this assignment for me, how does that document, how does that worksheet, whatever it is you had it do, how does that then become proof of whether a child learned or didn't learn something? Because in the past, if all the kids got 100 on their homework or all the kids got 100 on an essay they had to turn in, it proved that the kids all knew the stuff and that the teacher could move on to the next subject. Depending on the amount of usage of tools like ChatGPT, those types of assignments don't really prove that anymore. And so this is one of those, we don't know what's going to change. That's going to be something for schools and teachers to discuss, how they continue to teach, knowing that tools like this are out there. But again, going back to kind of giving some kudos to Episcopal, I love that they recognize that the way that they teach these tools, the level that they embrace them, it's ultimately going to prepare the students for their next chapter in life. That conference that I mentioned at the start of the year, where Ethan Mollick was talking, he said that one of the groups that is at most risk right now around the rise of generative AI are kids who are in college right now at schools who are slow to embrace this stuff. A lot of schools, their first reaction was just immediate ban, no use whatsoever. Any detected use will be, reason for, expulsion, whatever the case may be. That is not the way to go about it. That is not even remotely based in any sort of reality. It's based in fear. And that's becoming rarer and rarer to see a school claim to have that approach. But if a teacher doesn't spend the time talking about AI, if a school makes no emphasis or makes no effort to make sure the use of these tools is part of the curriculum, at least, the kids who are in college now are going to get out of school. They're going to go into the workforce that has been using AI for however many years since that kid's been in school, 1, 2, 3, or 4. That kid's going to come out touting their ability to do a number of things by hand and manually and without AI. And the workplace is going to say, weird, we haven't done those things manually in so long. We don't need someone who can do those things manually. So what are some of these ways? My 13-year-old is in French class this year and had a test that he wanted to prepare for. And these pictures that you see here, these are from his workbook that he had to study with. They were also given one 10-question worksheet, like a practice test to use to study with. It's just on a piece of paper. So if you think about it, how effective is that piece of paper? I mean, he can answer the questions, and maybe the answers are online in an answer code or answer guide, or maybe they're in the back of the book. I don't remember, but even still, he just gets told, right or wrong, or he can see that his answers were right, or the wrong ones, it just says the right word or whatever it is. How helpful is that? Well, he had taken some of these quizzes in the past where that was about the amount of study material they had given him, and it wasn't really enough. He wanted to get better grades, and I wanted him to get better grades. And so we brought in ChatGPT. And so what I was able to do is take photos with my phone, of his pages in his workbook that the material was going to be on. And you can see here in my prompt, I asked it to create me 20 questions. Give me some that are English to French. Give me some that are French to English. Give me some that are sentences he needs to translate. And please, let's go. And it did that. It just gave me exactly what I asked for. It gave me twice as much material as he had been given to prepare for this test. And then he was able to go back into his room and take this mock quiz. We then took a photo of his answers and we then uploaded them into ChatGPT and we said, how did he do? And it told us which ones he got right and which ones he got wrong. Now, what's interesting is I forget which number it was. I think I've been saying maybe number 9, but one of them, he was pretty confident that he had actually gotten right. And so he said, I really think this is right. Can we ask ChatGPT? Like, can we ask it and say, like, are you sure? Like, I really think this is right. You should absolutely do that. ChatGPT can and does sometimes make mistakes. It even says that under the line that you type in on ChatGPT, it says that it can make mistakes. And so again, that's where that thing comes in, where you need someone who understands the material. I haven't taken French in 20 years. I don't remember anything about my French learning. We don't have a French tutor sitting there with us. And my kid was able to actually, well, I was the one that did it. I was like, I'm pretty sure that this one is actually correct because my kid says because of the masculine conjugation, whatever the case was, that it would be correct. And ChatGPT came back and said, you're exactly right. Like that is actually correct because of the masculine so and so and so and so. So again, it's important to not just take its word for it. It is mainly almost always going to be correct, but not always. Not enough to just take its word for it and assume that everything it tells you it's true. You need some way of validating that. So what else was interesting was I asked him after we did this, I said, do you feel prepared now? Do you feel like you are going to do really well in this test? And he was like, I mean, kind of a little bit. I wouldn't mind studying more. I don't really know what to study though. So we asked it. You can dive deeper like that. You should treat ChatGPT like a human. And when I say that, I mean, it's not a calculator where it just gives you an answer and that's it. That's the end of that conversation. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I asked it, you know, you can see here, is there one aspect or area that he should focus on most as he continues to study based on the questions he got right versus wrong? And it told us a great answer. And it said, yeah, that he's got a great grasp of the verb conjugation and most of the vocabulary. Maybe focus on the prepositions because it saw that he had messed those up. And I asked him, I said, are prepositions one of the areas you're not as strong in? And he was like, absolutely. He's like, that's what I'm going to focus on. So again, it's that level of understanding how to use these tools. It's not just create a thing for me. It creates it and you're like, thanks, bye. It's create a quiz for me and then check my answers and then tell me why I got what's wrong. Or there's a million other questions. Again, think of treating it like a human, not just a calculator that is so binary and I ask it for this and it says this. Go back and say, which ones did I get right and wrong? Go back and ask it, of the ones I got wrong, can you see why I made those mistakes? Are there any similarities? Are there any ways that I can more easily remember that thing on my test tomorrow? Are there any tricks to remembering that? Any like mnemonics or anything like that? You can ask it for anything. Here's an example for math. I meant to have a title card in here, but I forgot. For math, this was from my second grader's math homework one night. Now, as an English major who is terrified of numbers and terrible with numbers, I don't know how to do this problem. Now, I can figure it out, but he asks me how to solve the problem because he wasn't there on the day of school that they went over number lines. Now, why it's confusing is for me is that there are 3 numbers needed here. It's something minus something equals something. Well, there's 7 numbers on the number line. I have no idea what the equation shown is in this number line. I'm fully admitting that. I don't know if it wants me to do 482 minus 20 is 462, or 462 minus 5 is 457, or 782 minus 300 is 482. I don't know how to do number lines. So who needs to know how to do number lines in this scenario? Me and my son. We both need to know. I want it to explain it to me because I also want it to know, and because maybe I'm going to have to explain it to him. But my favorite thing to advocate for tools like ChatGPT are giving it as much context as you can, because the more context you give it, the better its answer is going to be. If I just said, please give me the answer to this, it would do it. It would just give me the answer. He wouldn't know how to solve the next problem on his own, though, and neither would I. And he wouldn't know how to finish his homework. He wouldn't know how to do well on the next test. That's that thinking about learning has become the process. We need to actually learn this. ChatGPT is more than capable of just giving us the answer if that's what we want. I mean, we can ask it for that, but that's not learning. We don't just need the answer for this. And so you can see here in my prompt, I'm letting him know it's a 7-year-old that needs help with this. I don't know how to use it either. Please explain the steps of how to do it so we understand. So ChatGPT now knows in my answer back to this person, I need to explain it in a way that makes sense to a grown-up and to a 7-year-old. If I just said, I don't know how to solve this problem, it knows how old I am. If I said, I don't know how to solve this problem, please help me understand, it might have explained it in a way to me that I go, oh, I got it, that I still then struggle to explain it to a 7-year-old. So I've asked it for both. And the explanation is brilliant. And I say brilliant because I struggle with math so much. And this thing actually helps me understand that this is pretty easy. And I'm not going to read through step by step here, but it goes through this very like step by step process of how to do it and gets all the way to the very, very end. We both now feel more than competent at doing number line problems kind of going forward. And for anyone who's ever tried to look up an answer like this online, it's kind of a pain. Like once you see it done like this, that's become such an outdated way of thinking about it. I mean, you go to Google and you type in how to solve number lines. Again, it brings you up 150 million results. You just click on the second one because that one looks okay, but oops, that one's an ad. You don't want to do that. You scroll down, this one looks okay, but no, that's a different type of number line. So you go back to Google and then there's a YouTube video, but you click on it and there's a 15-second ad before it. And then the first 3 minutes of the video are the YouTube streamers asks that you like and subscribe and smash that like button and all that junk. And then you're scrolling through the video trying to find the actual part. That way stinks. And that's the way we were doing this less than a year ago. It's the way many people out there are still doing it, which is, again, why I'm out here like, everyone look at what's available for us. Because this is the new way of using the internet. It's not a cheat. It's not a hack. It's just a much, much, much more efficient internet. And for those of you who have kids that are above second grade, and you're like, I understand my second graders' math homework. I'm not an English major and a number idiot. I don't need help and stuff like that. I just went online and asked it. I just went online and found some harder math just to see what it could do. And so I found this picture and I just said, can you explain how to solve number 9 step by step? I'm very confused. Gives me that explanation. Now, look at the difference in the prompt here. Can you explain how to solve number 9 step by step? It does it at a very, very high level. Let's say that I did this and I still don't understand. I could say, sorry, this is way over my head. I need you to dumb it down a little bit. Please explain it in a much more easier way for me to grasp. I don't really know this material very well. And it would do that. So it can really take anything that you need to explain and it can explain it at whatever level you need it to. And I'm going to show you a cool science trick here in a minute that kind of goes even further. Now, here's the problem with tools like these. This is just a math worksheet that I found online. Let's pretend it's a worksheet that your kid brought home for homework one day. If your kid has access to ChatGPT on their laptop or on their device, whatever, you can take a picture of this worksheet or any other sheet that they brought home and say, please fill in the correct answers for these math problems. And it will do that for you in about 5 seconds. The problem, the school system, education, as a whole, doesn't really know yet how to kind of work with this because, yeah, a kid could do this. A kid could just copy these answers. Now, take a step back. What proof do we have that these answers are correct? 0. There's a possibility that these aren't right. So that kid probably won't, but should check these answers. Even if you use a computer, even if you use a calculator. I'm not advocating that kids do their homework this way, but to just blindly look at this and be like, whoa, so smart, so fast, and just fill in those problems with these answers. What if a kid turns that in and for whatever reason, ChatGPT made a mistake or misnumbered these? Like if you notice that these problems aren't numbered, what if it numbered them? What if it didn't number them in a way? Or what if it just gave the answers? And the kid just filled in the answers and they got all of them wrong because they had just started from the wrong place on the page. That's going to look real bad. So I want to really emphasize that it's amazing these tools can do what they do. But when we think about how our kids use them, I can't advocate enough you being the one to put in the prompts. Encouraging your kid to come to you when they have a problem or they don't understand something, they bring it to you, you don't understand it either. So you think to go to ChatGPT, or encouraging your kid to become familiar enough with these tools where they look at a problem and go, this could be a cool use for ChatGPT. and to come and ask you if y'all can do that. This is way too tempting for kids of it can do your homework in 5 seconds. It's way too tempting for them. I know that's a fact because I showed this to two of my two older kids and they were like, whoa, cool. And I was like, no, not cool at all. This is not cool. So you don't want to use it for something like this. You want to use it to help you understand something better. You want your kid to use it, or you and your kid to use it together to help you come up with ideas for a paper they can go write themselves, things like that. We'll talk about more of those cases. I use it for writing now every day. It is just how I do my job. It's just what I do now. But let me show you an issue. I can write a prompt this simple. Please write a concise 5-paragraph essay about Jackie Robinson. Just writes it immediately, so quickly, so fast. Now, for this exercise, I cheated a bit, and I did go back and ask it to write me a 5-paragraph essay about Jackie Robinson, but put in 5 facts or 5 false facts about him. And so in this 5-paragraph essay, there are 5 things in here that are just incorrect. And I'm doing that to show an example of this could happen. ChatGPT could go, remember, it's trained on everything on the internet. The easiest way to remember that ChatGPT can make mistakes is everything on the internet correct and factual? No, it's not. So it is sometimes going to pull from sources that are incorrect and not factual. And so imagine asking Chat, again, as a kid who has to write a 5-paragraph essay and who doesn't want to, imagine them going to ChatGPT and just saying, please write this essay for me. Can you picture a kid doing that? Of course you can. Now, if they have been studying Jackie Robinson in class, then that kid could take this essay and could look at it and go, wait, Atlanta, Georgia. Jackie Robinson was born in Cairo, Georgia, I'm pretty sure. Number 45, everyone knows Jackie Robinson is number 42. But if they have not discovered, or if they have not learned about that person at all, and that kid was just given Jackie Robinson as a person to write an essay about and then come tell the rest of the class about it, it's going to be a real problem if they show up with an essay and start reading this out loud, or the teacher looks at it and goes, I don't think they wrote a word of this. There's no way they thought Jackie Robinson served in the Navy because it was the Army. Or why would they think he was traded to the Cubs? It was the Giants. Why would they think he was 45? He was 42. You have to be able to fact check the stuff you ask it to do. So you yourself need to be knowledgeable enough about the subject where you can then go, wow, it nailed it. If you are asking it to create something for you, or you need to be able to fact check what it wrote with someone who does know about that material, or be able to ask it for sources. That's a great use for ChatGPT. You can actually ask it for sources for where it got its information. Let's say it wrote this essay and it said Atlanta, Georgia, and you don't think that's right. You don't remember hearing that. You can ask it. Jackie Robinson was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Like, I didn't think that was, I thought he was born somewhere else. It may then come back and go, you're right. He was born in Cairo, Georgia. My apologies. It's my mistake. Or you can ask it for a source. Ask it for a source that shows me that Jackie Robinson was born in Atlanta, Georgia. It'll come back and say, I found that information here. You may then be able to go to that website and go, this website is completely fake. This isn't like news at all. It's made up. It was written by a 4-year-old. Like, whatever the case is, you can ask it for things like that. Science. Same example. Let's say a kid gets this assignment. And they have to fill in the blanks of this list the parts of an animal cell. And they just ask ChatGPT to do it for them. It can do it. Now, again, are these right? I don't know. The bubble on the very top outside the cell is the flagella. So that would be that first one. Maybe. I don't know. I'm going to have to take its word for it if I don't know the parts of a cell, or if I can't go find that information elsewhere. It is very dangerous. I would explain this to your kids. Very dangerous to just take something like this and be like, ChatGPT said, because again, it might not be right. Look at number 2, the first bubble inside from the top left, lysosome. The first bubble inside from the top left, the one directly underneath it, I have no clue. It's not worth it to just fill in the blanks with whatever ChatGPT said, because that'll get your homework done faster. That is a reason to not let kids do this on their own, or to let them believe that everything it creates is 100% flawless, because it's just not. They may be right. They may be not. And it's not worth just assuming that they are. So what's a better usage? Let's take this picture of a cell. You can upload this picture into ChatGPT and you can give it a prompt like this. Now, I made up the scenario. I don't have a 6th grade kid, but let's pretend a kid has to memorize all the parts of a cell. I remember having to do that as a kid, and I remember it being very, very hard. Now, I used baseball as an example here because I do love baseball and know a lot about baseball. One of my favorite uses for ChatGPT is to ask it to explain something to you in another thing's terms, like some other thing that you do know a lot about, that you know by heart, that you love and have like a deep passion for. I have yet to see an example where someone tried to break ChatGPT where it couldn't do that. You can ask it to explain rocket science to you in the terms of Pokemon. You can ask it to explain brain surgery to you like you would someone who's really into baking apple pies. You can compare it. You can use anything you want it to use as the basis for comparison to help you understand something. And I love doing this with my kids. So you can see here the prompt. These are brilliant. I'm not going to read through all of them, but the ways that they connect, well, this thing makes proteins and it helps get the rest of the cell ready, just like a training staff helps players build their muscle and skill. Mitochondria, these are the cell's power hitters, like the heavy hitters on a baseball team who drive in the runs. They provide the cell with energy, just as home runs provide the team with points on the scoreboard. This makes understanding this so much easier and is a fantastic thing for you to help your kids with when they've got to memorize all of the parts of a cell, all of the countries in Europe, whatever the case is. Ask ChatGPT to get creative with how it can help you memorize something. Just get your hands on it. Like, just ask it, tell it what you're struggling with, tell it what the age is of the person who needs to understand this stuff. Give it a couple things that that person likes, if that's going to help. But ChatGPT is wonderful for helping you in this regard. And here's some other examples. Last one I'm going to give, the DC trip. ChatGPT was not around when my now eighth grader was in fifth grade for the DC trip here at San Jose. But we all know the DC landmarks that you have to construct. This would have been a very realistic prompt that I would have used when my kid was in fifth grade. I am terrible at building things. He, at the time, was really only thinking about baseball. Again, baseball is a big part of big part of the household. At the time, he was really, it's just, I want to play professional baseball. For me, it's like, I don't have a clue how to build anything, and anything I try and build is terrible. And so you can see here, I may have given it more context than it even really needed, but that's okay. I want to make sure it's got enough. And I tell it, I want it to know how old this kid is. I want it to know what level of comfort he has with building things, what level of comfort I have with building things, that the rest of the class are going to build amazing things. We want our thing to look amazing too. We're going to find most instructions very intimidating. I want the materials to be cheap. I'm giving it everything. I could have given it 3 times as much context as even this, but I gave it this much stuff. And look at this intro that it even gives us before explaining how to do it. I mean, I've just told ChatGPT that we're going to find this intimidating, daunting, terrifying. We're going to have a panic attack. I've given it all this stuff. And instead of just, here's the directions like a robot, this is that simulating human intelligence. It didn't have to add this, but this is really nice. This is where you can really start to see these things as humans, which you don't have to do. They're not human. They're not thinking like a human. They are giving you information that it believes is what a human would say, so that it sounds human, but it is not being a human. It is still just a computer. But I love that it says, you can do this. Let's break this down into manageable steps. I've got affordable materials for you to work with. And the directions are awesome. I didn't include them all here, but it lists items that I know where to get. I know that they don't cost a lot of money. The instructions are phenomenal. They're so easy to follow. And then this isn't all of them. There's much more. But then it closes with this. This project is not just about the final product, but also about learning and spending quality time on a creative endeavor. Your son's enthusiasm for baseball shows he knows how to focus and achieve goals, and this project is just another way to apply those skills. I would not have thought to assure my son that we could get through this because of his achievements on the baseball field. That's such a cool, I didn't ask for this from you thing that it added. That's that machine learning aspect of a tool like ChatGPT. Let's talk about AI in our lives. kind of real quick. I know we're over an hour, but I mean, I could talk about this stuff for 4 hours. Um, Again, it's a big deal. It's not just me saying this. It's changing banking and the auto industry and healthcare, and it's in law. It is everywhere. It is going to be even more everywhere than it is today. This is not just me as like an AI nerd. I'm hyping this stuff up. I'm not going to play this video because I'm already kind of running a little bit long, but if you go to YouTube and you just search for Microsoft Microsoft Copilot, or Microsoft Office Copilot, or Microsoft Office 365 Copilot, you can find this video, and it's an actual Microsoft commercial that they put out in January, and it is the new version of Microsoft Office. This isn't coming. This isn't what they envision one day. This is real and here today. I don't have it where I work. We have asked for it, and we are hopefully going to get it, because when you see this commercial and you see someone ask Outlook, prepare me for my day, and it writes out a whole agenda based on what's on their calendar and what stuff they've agreed to do last week and things like that. And then please write this long thing for me, and it creates this whole product launch plan from scratch. And then they go to PowerPoint and say, please turn this into a 10-slide PowerPoint deck, and it makes a PowerPoint deck in about 10 seconds. And then they go to Excel and say, please tell me what last month's highest sellers. And it's just like, it's all natural language, asking the software to create stuff and creating it in seconds versus hours or days or weeks. It's just the way that everyone is thinking about work now. These are all ways that I'm using AI in my job. Now, I'm on a marketing team. We have not replaced any marketers because of AI, but we are replacing manual work that would have taken hours or days or just been really, really inefficient because it had to be keyed in one key at a time versus just asking ChatGPT. And also, when I say asking ChatGPT, if you have the mobile app, there is a little headphone icon down in the bottom, and you can just speak all your prompts. I don't mean talk to text like on your iPhone where you just speak your text and it chunks it out like one word at a time as you're talking. I mean just full on conversationally speak however fast you want, off the cuff, loose. You can, as I'm talking to it sometimes and trying to ask it for something, I'm like, oh, wait, no, sorry. Let me go back a step. I meant to tell you. So the reason that we're doing this, you can throw all that in there. You don't have to clean up anything, and it speaks back to you. Like, you then have this full conversation. So I'm now in my car sometimes having a conversation with ChatGPT, and it's some sort of project that I have at work. And then when I get back to my desk, I have that whole conversation in my like desktop ChatGPT. So those the meetings that I wanted it to summarize, or the creating feedback on project plans, I have that conversation like I'm talking to someone at work. We're getting to that level of efficiency with this tool where like I don't even type any of my prompts anymore into ChatGPT because it's just faster for me to say them. I mean, I can say a 500-word prompt in, a couple of minutes versus typing out 500 words and all of the like backspacing, everything else I would do that would take minutes and minutes and minutes. We're getting to that level of efficiency. This is a billionth of the ideas of what people are using these tools with at work. This is just one example. The 100 blogs in 100 minutes, that was a project where there were 100 blogs that needed to be have their branding updated, where all the product names needed to be changed, the company name needed to be changed. They needed to be kind of refreshed in a new tone, going to a new persona. And we estimated that it would have taken, I think it was about 3 weeks to do that. Not 3 weeks of just straight 8-hour work days, because no one has 8 hours free every work day where they can work on something like that. Plus, you would get really, really burnt out. It would have taken the team about 3 weeks. It took 100 minutes. Done before lunch. Like, that's the level of impact that we're seeing with these tools and why we're talking about them and looking for so many exciting ways we can use them, and where I hope you do the same. Also, using it at home. We use this stuff all the time. It hasn't replaced bedtime stories, but every once in a while we ask the voice, like the spoken thing, to come up with a bedtime story because we really want to hear one about, again, a dragon who wins a surfing contest, and there's a spaceship pulling a chain of hot dogs behind it that's being chased by a group of flying dogs, And on the beach, there's a monster truck competition that's being watched by a bunch of sea turtles that graduated from Harvard. We don't have that book, but we really want to hear that story. And so we just ask it every once in a while to tell us that story, and it does. In-car quizzes. We're sitting in traffic one day, and my youngest son's really into Pokemon, and I was like, "What can we do to pass the time?" I was like, "I know." I pulled it up, tapped that little headphone thing, and said, "Hey, we're stuck in traffic and kind of bored. My kid is really into Pokemon. He knows a lot about it, not everything, but knows a lot. Give us a 10-question quiz about Pokemon where we have to name the character that you're describing. Make the questions, challenging, but not like impossible. He's just a little kid. Don't make them too easy. We definitely know all the easy characters like Pikachu, Charizard." And it's like, sure, here we go. Question one, just on the spot. Again, it's just, there is no end and no limit to what you can ask these things to do. And that's really freeing. And it's also really intimidating. And it's really exciting for like an enthusiast like me to kind of think about what other amazing things can we come up to use these tools with. When I say organizing and decluttering, this is one of my favorite examples. This is a bookshelf in my office. The middle shelf is actually a little more organized than it typically is. Usually all three shelves look like that top shelf and the bottom shelf. I just uploaded this picture and said, please help me organize this shelf a little better so I can get these games, less cluttered looking. It sees them all, like every box by name. It sees them all. It knows their shape. It knows their dimensions. It knows a way to organize them better. The things that people are doing with uploading photos and having it analyze photos is just, even as someone who plays with these tools every day, I still can't get over it sometimes. I saw someone one time on Twitter talk about how they used it to help organize their garage. Our garage needed to be uploaded or needed to be organized. I went to the garage and took 3 pictures of the garage, said, please help me organize the garage. I don't even know where to start. And it said things like your vacuum cleaner and laundry detergent back in the back are probably things you access pretty regularly. Maybe think about moving those more towards the front, closer to the door. I see a number of boxes that look open and that have room in them. You may want to fill those up with some of the loose items and then close them so they can be stacked. That back brick wall would be great for a bike rack to put that bike on. You've got Christmas decorations in like 3 different places in the garage. The majority of the decorations appear to be in the back left shelves, and it looks like there's room to put everything back there. That's wild. I mean, absolutely wild. And again, people every day race to the internet to go, oh my gosh, look what I just did. These uses that are out there are so exciting and so interesting and so unheard of yet. And when I tell people about them, 99% of the time, the answer is just, I didn't know it could do that. That's why I want to be out here telling these stories, and why I would love for you to share the examples of the crazy things you come up with, because they're probably things I haven't thought of yet. And that's the way we're all learning, because there is no instruction manual for this. There is no list from OpenAI of here's the 9 trillion things you can do. They themselves say that they didn't come up with this tool knowing all the different ways it would be used. That's not to say that they're like, we had no idea people would use it like in a scary way. They're just like, we didn't come up with it assuming we would know. We knew it was this blank open canvas that people would come up with just amazing ways to use these tools for their advantage. So safety, privacy, and responsible use. The big one, real quick, the big one is you can't put anything private and personal into these tools. Well, you can, but you absolutely should not. Anything you type into these tools, you should consider information that OpenAI now has. And they come through and they collect all the stuff that we've been typing into these tools, and they use that information to make these tools smarter, to give them access to more information. So if you have uploaded a spreadsheet of a bunch of people's names and social security numbers and addresses and phone numbers and that kind of stuff, that stuff, I'm not saying it's so easy where the second you type it and hit enter, now someone else can say, what's so-and-so's social security number and phone number? And it goes, oh, well, here it is. This person just gave it to me 5 seconds ago. It doesn't work like that, but that is information that eventually could make its way back into the view of someone else, because this is just the internet. So what you're sharing on the internet, you are sharing with anyone else who can access that thing from the internet. That's the way you kind of need to think about it. So when you put stuff in it that is about you or about your job or about your kid or their class, just anonymize it. just keep it anonymous. You don't have to give it private information. You don't need to give it information that is going to get you or your company or your kid's school, whatever, in big trouble because you've put information on there that others should not see for legal reasons or whatever the case may be. ChatGPT can make mistakes. It will make mistakes, and it does make mistakes. If you're asking it for information, let's say I'm an event planner and I know how to plan an event really, really well. It's my job, but it takes me 4 hours to type out this massive months-long event plan. If I ask it to do that and it creates that thing for me in 10 seconds, and I then can look at that event plan and go, this is a fantastic event plan. Well, this part's not. That's something we would never do. I'll delete that part out. This is so great. Fantastic usage. If I have never planned an event in my life and I have no idea what goes into planning an event, and I ask it for that same plan and it gives me pages of activities to do over the next like 3 or 4 months, and I have no idea if any of those are good ideas, that is the last thing I should go follow. It's just, well, ChatGPT said it. I need to get that thing in front of an event planner, or I need to check some of those things and say, I'm going to verify whether doing this at this stage or doing this at all is a good idea or not. You need to be able to fact check what it creates for you. Ask it for sources. If it says something that you're not sure if it's true, ask it where it got it from. If you ask it to write you a newsletter and you want to include some other points in there, like some other metrics, someone else's research that backs up yours, ask it for some. Say in my second paragraph, I really want to include a source there that backs up what I'm saying. Can you find me a source that does that? It'll go find you one, or it'll come back and say it couldn't find any, but most likely it'll find you one. This is a great case for your kids. If your kid has written a report and they wrote it entirely on their own, it's a 10-page report, but they've got to include at least 5 sources. You can upload that report into ChatGPT and say, I need 5 sources for these to back up these points, or they need to come from these sources. It finding those sources for you is not cheating. If you were just going to go, or if you or your kid was just going to go Google looking for those sources anyway, there's not a lot of difference there. Now, fact checking, just because it said, yeah, this website over here has got this report that says ... Go make sure, because sometimes that report is not there. And you can say, I went looking for this source and it doesn't actually exist. It'll say, you're exactly right. I made that mistake. So again, ask it for help, but be prepared to fact check. When it comes to our kids, if you are unsure of where AI is allowed to be used and where it's not, ask. Like I said, lots of parents are asking schools lots of questions these days around AI. Don't end up using it in a place that it wasn't permitted. Don't find out after the fact that that wasn't allowed, and so your kid pays the price because you weren't aware of the rule, or the teacher didn't think to tell you the rule because they'd never been asked that question before. Just ask the question. It's a great idea to just make sure that your use is permitted. At the same time, don't assume that it's not permitted and just not use it. There are way too many cool ways. If you go online and Google like ways kids are learning more with ChatGPT, or ways AI tools are helping kids learn in class. There are so many amazing ideas that I cannot wait to do with mine, but just ask. And remember that you are intelligent. It's not that these tools aren't, but you need to use the tools intelligently. They are so willing to do whatever you ask that sometimes what you ask it for was asked poorly. And so it gives you something poor back that you either don't recognize as poor, or it comes back that it's something poor. And so then you just don't use that tool because you go, oh, this thing only does like poor work. Use it in intelligent ways. If what it came back with isn't what you were thinking it would be, tell it. Tell it what it needed to be. Tell it what you want instead. Tell it where you want it to, like, hey, this is great, but like the second paragraph, I need way more information on that. Or this is great, but the closing is terrible. Can I get a different closing that really summarizes the point that I made in that first paragraph? It'll do that. It'll do whatever you ask it to do. So be really intelligent and intentional about what you ask it to do. Here's the shortest section of the entire presentation. What's next for these tools? We don't know. The speed at which these tools is being updated is like nothing we have ever seen in our entire lives. These tools, ChatGPT in particular, has been around for less than 2 years and has grown, like features wise, what it can do more than other tools could do in 10 years or 20 years. They are doing things that have never been done before. So as far as what's next, we don't know. OpenAI only tells you a little bit here and there about what you can expect next. New tools come out every single day. The day that I gave this presentation at San Jose to the parents, I had a call with one of our colleagues in Australia that evening, about 6 hours after the talk. And he, oh, no, it was longer than that. But it was later that evening. And he said, "Hey, have you played with Hume yet?" And I was like, "What's Hume?" And he was like, hume.io. It's a new AI thing where you have a conversation with it. And as you're talking in real time, it's showing you the different emotions that it's detecting in your voice as those things like raise and lower. I was just like, what? And I went straight to it and started playing with it. There will be something new out later today. Something came out yesterday that I didn't even know about. We just know that these things are changing everything. Like they are literally changing everything around us, how everything is being created, how quickly it can be created, how creative it can be. It's enabling anyone with access and understanding and acceptance to do things they've never been able to do before, and at speeds that we as humans just can't do. It's not an optional thing. Well, it's increasingly becoming not optional to say, no, I'm still going to take a week to do this report, especially when maybe, let's say, your boss starts to hear more and more and more about how that report can and has been created by someone else in 10 minutes. You won't be able to justify saying, I need a week to take this, or I need a week to do this. And your boss is going to be less and less likely to give you a week as they become more aware of what these tools can do. Lastly, I like this quote a lot. It's kind of a motivating, like moving quote for me, and that currently we're still kind of at this stage. I mean, this quote is about 2 years old and we're still kind of there. I mean, there's definitely more people using these tools today than 2 years ago, but it's still at this stage of people being like, nah, I don't know. Sounds like all fluff. Sounds like hype. Sounds like witchcraft, whatever the case may be. It is a fundamental shift in how we work and how we interact at a level that's as big as anything we've seen in our lifetimes. It's undeniably true. There is no argument against that. And those who are, I don't just, when I say embracing, I don't just mean making it a part of every aspect of their life from day one. That's not what I mean. I just mean for those who fingers in the ears, like refuse to hear any more about it versus those who are like, let me put my hands on it. Let me take a look. Let me see what I can create. Let me see how it can help me personally. That's where we need more people to be. It's just at that, like, okay, let me take a look. No one's asking for just universal, immediate buy-in on everything and go ahead and assume you'll never do anything manual ever again. That's not the way to do it. That's not reality at all. But the refusal or the denial that it's going to be something you do use, that's something I would love to help start to kind of chip away at. This is where we went to the Q&A. Like I said, we can't do it here on the recording. I've definitely been talking long enough on this recording. If you've been watching this whole time, maybe you broke it up into chunks. That's always, fine too. This is my contact info. You are more than welcome to reach out to me at any time to talk about this stuff. Fears, excitement, cool ideas, questions, whatever you have, reach out. I would love to talk about this stuff with you further. I hope you've gotten something out of it and that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you again to San Jose Episcopal Day School for giving me this opportunity. And yeah, hope to chat with you sometime soon.